Hello, hello. What the fuck happened to my freaking VTube studio? Hello, imps. So, the day has finally come. The stream that I had to cancel last week is here. I was so tired last week though that I didn't have any energy. So, well, now I have I have enough energy to like sit through this topic. Abolish the nuclear family because that shit's radioactive. Yeah, for sure. Hello, Manapple. Hi, best girl. Yes. With me is the best girl ever that ever best girl. the wiggly Karl Marx body pillow. How many nuclear families must I destroy to acquire that new Spirit Box album on vinyl? Yo, I actually tried ordering like the one from Pale Records. But it was already sold out because there was only 500 copies of it. I wanted to have the ghost vinyl, like the ghost pressing, the design for the vinyl, but it was already sold out and I'm like, what the fuck? I should have pre-ordered this shit. Morning from Denmark. Hello, hello. How many nuclear okay. Maybe all of them, Tora. They stock it at my work store I work at is getting one singular what the hell? Is getting one singular copy? What? For real? I heard they sell it at Target though. There are some Target they sell it at Target, they sell it at Hot Topic, but the ones that the design that I wanted was already sold out. At the beginning of the Soviet Union, the Soviets wanted all children to go to school, but many parents were against it. Even refused to send their children to school and resisted it, but today everyone understands that school is necessary. And parents who do not want to send their children to school are looked at as marginal. In the future, the same awaits the modern family. Yeah. Good evening. I managed to join the stream as I was super unproductive today anyway, so maybe talking here will be good. Still don't understand how family is connected to Adam's core. No. Okay. Hi, man. I've been a while because school been keeping me busy. Hello, Cruiser. Was that like an insult? The pigeons. Guys, men's drones. Government's drones. Wait, I thought you said guy. Government's drones are wheezing on my balcony. I'm tired. My sleep schedule is fucked. I think all of our sleep schedules are fucked. Could I ask for something regarding today? What do you mean? What do you want to ask? Floppy? Get wrecked, parents. Oh, today's your birthday. Happy birthday, dude. Happy birthday, a floppy man Fortnite. Wait, what the hell is that name? But anyway, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Okay, there's a lecture that I want us to watch about origins of the family. The origin of the family, private property and the state. But before that, I want to have like a brief overview of what, like, just the brief points on the highlights on the lecture and the book itself, you know. Cause yeah, hopefully our attention span could manage. I believe in you, Imps. I believe in your attention span. Go ahead, Boss Mana. Educate the masses. Mana Christ, that's many more happy birthdays than I'm used to. That's good. Good. Get birthdayed. Karl Marx body pillow is crazy. Yes. Only here in Takchimana channel. I shall share pictures of the vinyl when I get it. Time to watch why the radioactive family is cringe and ungood. Yes. Marx is baby girl. Yes, best girl. We read theory in this bish. Attention span we have. Exactly. I am proud of my imps. My chat is smart. Although sometimes you only share like one Brian cell. But I believe in my chat's attention span. You have the most beautiful attention spans in the history of Twitch. The longest attention span of any Twitch chatter that has ever chatted on Twitch. Perfect naked teen. No, hell no. What the hell? Mama Media, what you doing? What do you mean? What? What did you just type? What the? Okay. You should not believe in our attention spans. Trust me, it's not the best. I mean, well. Is Mana doing the Trump? Yes, I am. Controversial opinions. Engels is best girl. Oh, we have a contender. We have a contender. Oh, yo, let's go. Is somebody raiding? Hell yeah, let's go. Thank you for the raid. Welcome, raiders. Wait, why is my raid alert not working? What the hell? What the fuck? But anyway, welcome, raiders. Welcome. Welcome. Let's go. Thank you so much, comrade spilled bag of ice. Let me shout you out for a bit. Wait. Wait, can the mods shout out comrade spilled bag of ice? Cause I can't seem to make it work. What the fuck? I still accidentally read it as rice. Yeah, me too. Mark Snack. Wait, why is one hand over there? Wait, what am I? Wait a minute. What is going on here? Okay. There we go. Thank you so much. All right. So, no, nobody saw me fuck. How did you fuck up? I didn't see anything. I fuck up all the time, so I guess you don't need to. You don't need to cover yourself up. Thank you for rating, spelled bag of rice. I'm sorry. I still read your name as spilled bag of rice. Cause I love rice. But anyway, Raiders, welcome, welcome. So we are just about to talk about about origin of the family. Okay, so the nuclear family, from a Marxist perspective, and why it should be abolished. Why it should be abolished. Okay. Anyway. Let's see. Yes. We're gonna destroy Western values. Is that your yes, that's my Venom voice. Wait, why does spilled bag of ice kept rating me with Is he rating me twice? So what is a nuclear family? Why is it called like that? We'll find out why. How did you rate again? Yeah, double rate. Wow, double rating. How is that even possible? Can you even do that? Get double rated, auntie. You can raid from an offline channel. Oh, okay. DPRK is in the nuclear family? No, what? No. It's all squishmallow dragons fall. Okay. It's alright, it's alright. Okay, so what we have in today is... Hold on, let me just... Where are my notes at? So I don't have a PowerPoint presentation because I didn't have time, but I have notes. So that will have to do. That will have to do, okay? Is it this one? Hold on. I need to refresh it. Wait, what the hell? Okay, hold on. I think this is way too big. Ah, okay. I guess. What the fuck? Okay, I think this was it. I don't understand why I can't Okay, it's all fucked up. Hold on. God. Okay. I need to make it bigger. Okay. All right. Okay. Anyway, so the premise of if you are a new Marxist, okay, so this should be one of your foundational reading, okay? So it explores the historical development of family structures, property relations, and the state. So let's go over the key points of this book, okay? Of this foundational work by Frederick Engels, aka Best Girls Sugar Daddy, okay? Mark Sugar Daddy. Let's see what he thinks. Okay, first of all, it applies it follows the same principle of he examines it through historical materialism from the lens of historical and dialectical materialism, which means that, according to my notes, Engels applies Marx's materialist framework, arguing that social institutions like the family, property, and the state evolve in response to changes in the material conditions of production, rather than being static or natural, right? So, let's see. How do I relate this in basically, his point is what social structures like family, property, and the state, it just didn't become like that out of nowhere, right? It evolved based on the changes in how we produce like goods and how we meet our needs, right? Our daily needs. So, for example, like think of how like smartphones and the internet, like we have transformed like how we communicate these days. We don't send pigeons towards each other anymore, right? So we communicate, and then we a lot of our jobs are like based on the internet now. And even like, we meet our friends through the internet now, right? But back then it was not a thing, right? So just as technology changes society, what Engels' point is that that it shifts in how we use like our what do you call this? The society would change, like as just as technology changes society. The shifts in how we produce food, goods, and resources, right? It fundamentally changed family and social structures, right? So it just the nuclear family, the family structures that we have now, wasn't just like because of human nature, but it's because of how we were, but because of our technology and our needs, right? Speak for yourself. My house pigeon Yegor still regularly delivers messages to yo mom. The father leads the bride to the altar because he is passing the burden of protecting the woman from himself to the husband. But since women are already independent, this is an outdated tradition and should be forgotten. Yeah. Engels' example is what when women were the only ones who knew which baby came from which daddy. Things like hereditary ownership didn't work like they do now. Yeah, exactly. Also, next one, the evolution of the family from communal to nuclear, right? So listen, you guys, you were like, why is it called nuclear? Engels traces the family's development through stages consanguine, meaning that you are like, what do you call this? Of the same blood. Punaluan, pairing, and monogamous, linking these changes to shifts in economic systems. He emphasizes that the family structures are shaped by material conditions, not biology or morality. Okay. So like he basically, his point is family structures have changed over time from large communal groups to smaller male dominated nuclear families. Like, the head of the household like is usually the father, right? So that's how like we interpret like families now, that there should be like a the head, usually in the back of our minds, even if we don't admit it, when we say like head of the household is usually the dad, right? And yeah, but just imagine like a family has like a big family reunion where everyone shares like resources and responsibilities, right? So over time, this shifts to smaller households where one person, yeah, like I said, traditionally like the dad, right? The man controls the finances and the decisions because he's the breadwinner of the family. So Engels tried to tie this shift to the rise of private property, right? People wanted to pass wealth to their own children, so not the whole community. So like, which brings us to private property and patriarchy, which is controlling inheritance. So the rise of private property, particularly in agricultural societies, is central to Engels' analysis. He argues that private property led to the patriarchal family as men sought to control property and ensure their offspring inherited it, right? And this shift marginalized women, reducing them to domestic roles. So it's basically back then in hunter-gatherer societies, this like women did not have this role like specifically. Women hunted too. There are lots of archaeological evidence that proves that women were also hunters, right? Women like they did a lot of hunting and gathering. Like everybody shared the burden, right? Like it wasn't just the man that was hunting. But with the rise of private property and of course the when patriarchy became the dominant structure, that changed a lot for women, okay? So basically what Engels wanted to say on this like particular point is that private property led to patriarchal families, right? Because men controlled the wealth and women's role was just limited to ensuring legitimate heirs, like what El Samio said in the chat, right? To ensure the heir of the family. That's where the all of our like the royal families are based on rather. Like a family bit, like like right now, even if it's not like this value is still like prevalent even amongst like commoners, right? We're not even like people who are not even in the royal family, like if like a business tycoon always wanted to pass down their business to like their children, preferably the male heir, That is especially true in like, in Asia. But basically, they wanted it to be just to keep the business just within the family. Okay, anyway. Also, yes, I said it. He said it, yes, Engels said it, that monogamy became an economic tool, right? So monogamy arose not from love or morality, regardless of what you think, right? For me personally, I prefer being in just like a monogamous relationship because it's more convenient for me and easier. But I'm not like totally opposed to like other people doing non-monogamous polyamorous relationships, because I'm not gonna be in that relationship. They are, so I don't care. But for me personally, I'm just gonna be monogamous. But regardless of whether you agree or whether you don't agree with monogamy, from Engels' perspective, it was definitely like it. From his analysis, it was an economic tool, Like it came out of not from love or morality, but from economic necessity to ensure that your baby mama is carrying your child. Okay, so that's what it is. Yes, see, it ensured paternity certainty, allowing women to pass property to their biological heirs. Engels critiques monogamy as oppressive to women, serving male property interests. Yes, monogamy arose from Christian teachings and the practice spread through European colonization of the world. Yes. The notion of monogamy is more about social standards, i.e., children keeping the last name of the dad, things like ancestry records. Yes, yes. So just imagine okay, let's imagine a landlord, right? A landlord has like a lot of properties and he wants to leave them to his children. So like I said, but only, but only if he's sure that they're his. Like the paternity, like his baby mama is really carrying his child. So to ensure that, monogamy is imposed to ensure that certainty, right? So that's why Engels critiqued that kind of system that benefits men and at the expense of women's freedom, right? So I really don't understand. So like if you read Engels and then like I don't understand like those people that call themselves Marxists, but they shun the shun being feminist or whatever. Like what? Have you ever read Engels, bitch? Did you read Engels? Because this motherfucker is feminist as shit, you know? I don't understand those people. Like I've seen some on the internet. Maybe they only exist on the internet. I don't know. But hopefully they're not as, they're like the verbal minority on the internet. Hopefully they're not prevalent in real life. Because man, what the hell? Exactly. You can't call yourself a communist if you don't acknowledge feminism or the necessity of feminism, you know? MAGA commies. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. You know what? You just reminded me of MAGA communists. Why not let women inherit? Those motherfuckers just look at like the backslides post-war during Stalin and go, see, communists are actually anti. Exactly. Like why are you like glorifying the mistakes that the communist leaders made? We need to learn from them. What the fuck? Are you applying dialectical and historical materialism at all? Like what the fuck? How can you be a communist? How can you call yourself a communist and you shun feminism? Like it's such I don't understand that. But anyway, let's move on. I need it to be fast, boy, because like there's a lot of points to cover. And the video we're about to watch is like 48 minutes. So I'm going to try to be fast, okay? So anyway, moving on. Where were we? The state as a tool of class domination. So Engels argues that the state emerged to manage class conflicts arising from private property. It serves the ruling class, maintaining their control over resources and suppressing the working class, right? So it's very what do you call this? Self-explanatory. We see this. We see the state as a tool of class domination. We all feel it. You don't need an example for this. Just look at your current lived reality and you will understand what I mean. Well, what Engels meant. But anyway, moving on. Hold on. Where is the thing? Man, I did have like notes. But it's pretty short. I wanted to keep it short, so we can like, Maybe I can move a little bit over there. Yeah. Okay. Women's oppression and economic dependence, right? Engels links women's subjugation to the development of private property and class society. He sees the patriarchal family as a mechanism for controlling women's labor and reproduction. As, as stated above, right? And advocates for women's liberation through the abolition of private property and class distinction. So the end game is really to abolish the nuclear family, we need to abolish capitalism, right? Communism as liberation, a world without exploitation, obviously. Engels envisions a classless communist society where private property is abolished, our goal. The state withers away and the family is transformed. In this society, women would achieve equality, freed from economic dependence on men, right? What's that quote? I had this specific quote that I wanted to share from, let's see, from Engels. Like I forgot which particular page it was, but basically Engels was like, he envisions a society where men won't have to buy women anymore, and that basically it's also an argument for like the abolition of sex work as it is at under capitalism, and it would be what sex work would look like would be different under communism, or it wouldn't be it wouldn't be work at all anymore, because it's just sex. It's just people just enjoying their sexuality and each other's, just enjoying sex without having, without making it transactional as we are, as some people would have it under capitalism, right? Mana, I might ask a question regarding what I can explain as appreciated collaboration. What do you mean? Let's just get the most warmongery Secretary of State ever, but she can't be as bad as a woman under a black president. Oh my god. Specifically addressing the Queen Elizabeth comment, yeah. In communism, we have abolished inheritance at all. The only thing that you can inherit will be a society built by previous generation. That's true. You are entitled to your own belief about individuals. However, I see it immature to wish anyone to burn in hell. Wait, what did Sneaky say? Oh, I would like if you were referring to like any like equality in monarchy, exactly what we stand for. May she and her brethren rot in hell. Absolutely would wish Queen Elizabeth to burn in hell. I don't give a fuck. Monarchist, burn in hell. I don't give a shit. If you think that's immature, fucking read a history book, dog. Man, what the hell? For what they did to the rest of the world, they fucking deserve to burn in hell. For all the genocides that they committed in the name of the crown, fucking burn in hell. I don't give a fuck. If you don't like that, you can get away. You can skip this one, I will never change my opinion on that. I don't give a shit. If only British people could overthrow the monarchy. Why not limit land inheritance to the people that are using and maintaining it? What do you mean limit in land inheritance? There shouldn't be any inheritance at all. But fuck Japanese. All the monarchies. I said when I said all monarchies, I meant all monarchies. Kollontai in the early Soviet Union had this fun work where she compares the institution of marriages as it was back to prostitution, where the woman in that form of relationship is selling her body in return for personal gain, just like sex work under. Yeah. That was basically it, because women did not have rights. Women were not allowed to vote, first of all, and women were not even allowed to have bank accounts, 100 years ago, right? What the hell? So basically, how do women survive, What else could you do when you can't even open your own bank account? You can't even vote. You can't even get work. Apart from selling your own body, Or getting or being married off to, I don't know, some schmuck. I mean, women did not have rights in the US till the 1970s. There we go, see? Women can't even have bank accounts, The whole fact that women get the last name of the man's family is a symbol of transferring property from one family to... Exactly. Which is why I would never change my family name. And I know my partner understands this. I would never. They also medically advanced many nations. I don't give a fuck about you. Why are you like nah, sit this one out. I don't want to hear you. They also advanced many nations, were the first empire to abolish slavery, industrialized India, and made them far more medically and technologically able and overall were the very moral nation, because they strictly followed the Bible, which forbade prostitution. Oh, fuck off! No! What do you mean moral? It is moral to colonize. Nah, fuck that. Nah, I don't want to hear you. Because we're the most moral empire is not an argument. We were justified to commit genocide because we advanced. We were the ones to advance medically is fucking crazy talk. Don't bring that shit in my chat. Nah, not today, Satan. Why are you copying for the British Empire, dog? Pick and choose your battles. What the fuck? My Irish ancestor says fuck you and your queen. Yeah, fuck that. Please do not come back to my stream anymore if you're gonna bring any more of that shit. You're not here to learn. If you're not here to learn about the topic in my stream, do not come to my stream. This is the purpose of us here. Doing this is to learn. Not picking fights with people in my chat and defending the British Empire. What the fuck is wrong with you? You are not welcome here. If you keep on doing that, you are not welcome here. We civilized them. They had their own culture and problems, as you have your own culture and problems. First to advance medically is crazy. Of course, you would develop so much faster than countries you're literally colonizing and stealing from. Exactly. And also, the Middle East was more advanced than the British Empire. I don't have enough coffee in me to deal with that shit. Nah, I don't. I'm sleep deprived today because I had to run errands. So I am not in the mood to fucking like sit in my chat and tolerate glazers of the British Empire. No. I don't give a fuck, okay? That's some real we civilized those savages type of race. Exactly. Like they should be grateful that we colonized them because we we civilized them. Shut the fuck up. Be so for fucking real right now. Oh my fucking god. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Lastly, critique of bourgeois family values. Engels critiques the hypocrisy of bourgeois family values, arguing that they mask exploitation and inequality. He calls for the radical restructuring of society to achieve true equality, which means that, for example, let's see okay. So they're like for example, like those family TV shows, right? Where it has like the perfect, like the American dream, white picket fence, your a wife and 2.5 kids and a white picket fence, right? So it portrays like a 2.5 kids. Perfect family with a breadwinning dad, a stay-at-home the trad wife, a stay-at-home mom, and happy kids. But in reality, like the 1950s, right? Behind the scenes, the mom can't even have a bank account, right? She might feel trapped, and the dad is overworked and spends his free time drinking his problems away, and of course the kids are pressured to conform. That's what Engels is he argues that this image is just a facade to just mask the deeper inequalities in a nuclear family structure, Like, I live very close to a British era indentured slave trading port. That shit would not exist if the British were as good as that apologist claims. Exactly. Nah, I did not. I just muted them for like 8 hours or 5. I don't know. But don't come here to my chat doing that shit, because I do not tolerate that. I do not tolerate glazing the British Empire in my chat. I have a question regarding music real quick, but it can wait until you would like to answer the question. Can I hear that? As I can hear that you've been through a lot lately. What do you mean a question? Like, just ask the question. Peak capitalism is a whole family dying in the mine. Kolkata. The port is just a memorial now. No slave trading happening now. Okay, yeah. You need to be asleep to believe. Yeah. You need to be asleep to believe the American dream, because it's just a dream. This reminds me of certain advertisement American posters. They were so wild about women. Ladies been gifted vacuum cleaner or been spanked with. Yeah. Those 1950s like posters, like those ads, right? If you would be interested in doing a collab with Ado, I don't think Ado would like pick me. What the hell? Unless Ado herself would say, "Oh yeah, let's collab." Sure, why not? But that's like a hypothetical question. What the hell? Also important to note that the overwork inevitably leads to the breadwinner abusing their partner. Yeah, exactly. It like them like basically having no free time. They don't have any hobbies. They get identity crisis because people need hobbies, okay? To like, we need enrichment in our lives, right? Like, we need to do things other than our jobs, right? And you can't do that if you're working overtime all the time, to make ends meet for your family, right? And because of that, people turn to alcohol, and with that, alcohol abuse comes with, with other behavioral problems, and in turn, abusing their partner, abusing their children. There is a chance, might be a small chance. But that's like a that's like a what if question, dude. That's not even a real question. I was so shocked. What the fuck? Once showed a woman as a carpet. We understand what about pets, but not about people. Yeah. We understand that about pets, but not about people. Yeah. Once showed a woman as a carpet. What the fuck? Had to leave for a bit and just return. The slide is still the same, I believe. What are we talking about at the moment? Yeah, I was just talking. I'm just responding to chat. It's a memorial for those who fell victim to it. The old left front government, despite their casteist tendencies, did some things right, luckily. What you mean I don't have to work 120 hours a week to be a real man? Generally the most abhorrent shit imaginable, but what do you expect from like the same people doing hyper racism, treating people like animals constantly? Exactly. Capitalism dicks over men more than sexism does. Exactly. Patriarchy affects everyone, not just women. It fucks with men's like sense of self, sense of like their self-worth, because it inevitably ties their self-worth towards their productiveness, right? Like how we tie it into like, if you're like how if you're broke, you won't get bitches, right? Kind type shit. That's how I always try to sell feminism to men. It's here to liberate you too, yeah. As the common post-Soviet joke says, with every day we find more artifacts, ruins of more advanced civilization. I know, right? I'm a fan of both of you. I could see you making a banger together, to be honest, like having both solo, each part's like singing together. Oh yeah, okay. I'm glad that you're fans for both of us, but that's not gonna happen. Let's be realistic, please. They're so happy with their matriarchal society. Something is as simple as what something is named can make a massive difference. A lot of men hear patriarchy and assume it benefits them. It was called something like domination, more people would hate it. Yeah. If it was called something like domination, more people would hate it. That's true. It's the framing, of course, and years of propaganda. Like generations of propaganda. It's not working, unfortunately, because they know how much sexism benefits them. Like, they actively use it. But they don't understand how much it also fucks with them. So that's why. You're just saying that because you want oral as a social cohesion too. What? What? Oh, bonobos. Okay. We're talking about bonobos. A lot of chuds view leftists as anti-male, but in reality, they worship the suicide cult of toxic masculinity that makes everyone miserable and leads to worsening male alienation. Yeah. I could try to reach out to her. Might not respond. I could try. No, you don't have, like, what? Do you know how much talent fee you'd have to pay to be able to collaborate with Ado? What? Let's be for fucking real. No. Can you drop the subject? Oh my god. I already said, like, sure, why not? But unless Ado herself would say that, like, don't bother Ado, please. Oh my god, what the hell? All people equal. All people are equal is the idea. Men are shit is what people hear. Yeah, unfortunately, when we say feminism, all they hear is like men ain't shit. But that's not it. Yeah, I think you need to chill, dog. You need to chill. You need to chill. Please chill. Chill for at least 10 minutes. Cause it's out of topic and it's really, yeah, like you're getting on my nerves, please. Oh my god. Please be on topic when you are in chat. Thank you. Don't assume everyone is a dum dum though. Some males are completely aware that they got it good from the domination of women and don't want to change that. Yeah. Feminism is not reversal, it's liberation of everyone. Exactly. The best part is pro-lifers refuse to recognize the fact that the abuse towards women structure of the nuclear family is responsible for most abortions. Yeah. I believe some freaks are to blame that today feminism is viewed that way. Yeah. What do you mean freaks though? What do you mean freaks? Who are you talking about, dog? What freaks are you talking about? Are you trying to blame women for like who when you say freaks, can you define that? How do you define freaks? Looks at Asmongold in his chat. Yeah, I know, right? I do think feminism needs to always center women. I understand introducing it to men as their liberation as well. The freaks are the men that hate women. Exactly. What do you mean the freaks though? I felt like that's a veiled message. Who do you mean the freaks? I mean that's a lot to expect from a pro-lifer, yeah. Okay, anyway, let's move on to the lecture itself because it's been an hour. And I have like 2 more hours to spare. So let's move on.
So it's a dangerous concept. But I will try my best, at least to give a taste of what Marxists have to say on this question. Now, this is about the origin of the family. I'm not going to just sit here and repeat what Engels said, because Engels wrote a very interesting book, which you can all read and study. And I hope you either have done, are doing, or will do. But the question is this: has the family, as we know it today, always existed? Has it been like this from the very early days of human society? I.e., has it always been a patriarchal family with a dominant male figure, as we have known it in recorded history? Or is it a phenomenon which has changed and evolved over time? Was there a period in which there was a different kind of family? And in the future, could there be a different kind of family to the one that we have known? Now, in today's academic world, which is unfortunately dominated by idealist philosophical outlooks such as postmodernism, the evolutionist and materialist approach of Engels and Morgan that he based himself on is considered superseded. It's old. It's no longer valid. We have studies which prove that the family has always existed as the nuclear family. Malinowski, a famous anthropologist of the first half of the 20th century, states quite bluntly, the nuclear family has always existed and will always exist. The question is this: is that true? Was there a phase which we would define as matrilineal? Very often you hear people talking about matriarchy. Now, matriarchy means rule of women, as patriarchy means rule of men. We're not talking about matriarchy. It would be a false debate to discuss that, because there wasn't such a thing as a matriarchal society. There was an egalitarianism of hunter-gatherer societies in which you had matrilineality, i.e. the tracing of descent and the organization of family groups around the women. And we argue, as Marxists, and as Marx did, that there was an early phase of human society which he defined as primitive communism. By that, we don't mean a primitive Joseph Stalin or a primitive Soviet Union. We mean a society where there was no private property, where there were no classes, where the means of production was so undeveloped, and humans lived from hunter-gathering. Now, I've read so many different anthropologists, some of them not exactly left-wing, who all agree that when you look at hunter-gatherer societies, even today, they are extremely egalitarian, far more egalitarian than any other form of society. Now, I've got an interesting quote which I put in my article, which is from Leslie White. Well, Leslie White is an American anthropologist. He was head of the anthropology department at Michigan University in the post-war period.
Throughout most of time, humanity existed in lived-in primal community. It most like the proto-communist societies. Women were freed from their Soviet-imposed roles as scientists, doctors, and artists, and given the freedom to starve, to be housewives. Hunter-gatherers will probably experience famine many times in their lives.
Who, I would say, is very close to a Marxist approach, although sometimes a bit mechanical. But he wrote a book called The Evolution of Culture.
Makes sense that they share, And that's why, that's how we evolved as a society. We are all wired to be social. And cooperation and pro-social behaviors were necessary for the survival of the species. So the way that capitalism incentivizes antisocial attitudes, right? Like greed. Just look at that fake state in the middle, in that fake state that's occupying Palestine. Just look at their society. That's like capitalism incentivizing the worst traits of humanity on steroids. Look at that. And how they treat each other. Look at how they treat each other, and then the fact that they treat each other like that, right? Imagine how they treat the people that they're occupying, right?
The development of civilization to the fall of Rome. He refers to this question of primitive communism, and he says this: so menacing did the theory of primitive communism become, apparently, that members of 3 anthropological schools have felt called upon to scotch it.
By far the worst thing I've seen come out of the post-Soviet sphere is interviews with 8-year-old girls forced to sell their bodies on the streets. Shit, so it was really bad. Also, you can't hoard property when all property is ephemeral and has to be used or consumed in a matter of years. Exactly. Can't hoard property without cops.
Lowy of the Boas school has attacked it repeatedly. Malinovsky, a leader of the functional.
Yeah, regardless of what you thought about the USSR, right? The effects of shock therapy. My God, what the hell? It's so harrowing to listen to what people had gone through.
School branded it perhaps the most leading fallacy there is in social...
You just need to have like a working conscience, you know? You don't even need to believe in whatever political beliefs. Like, do you have a heart, you know? I honestly think that philosophical evil and greed is what? Is in human nature shit. Is so, yeah, it is. It's not human nature. Like I said, I've always repeated it in chat all the time, in almost every stream, that there's no such thing as like immutable human nature, you know? Like human nature is predicated by, you know, the material conditions. I feel like I do have lots of guests. You'd call it internalized misogyny from being super anti-feminist in the past. It's the one thing from my right-wing past that is the hardest to shake. Misogyny is super easily accepted in society. Exactly. Because that's in the superstructure. Nazi German society and the apartheid in Palestine society are the same fucked up depravity of humanity. Exactly. Can't have cops without division of labor, and division of labor only comes with a stratified class society. Dialectical shit going on. Exactly. Misogyny is so hardwired in people, a lot of people and places. I hope you can overcome it. Yeah. Gorbachev should be brought back to life just to be killed all over. Just to be treated Mussolini style. in Minecraft. Funny thing that just today I watched an interview of the awesome Russian anthropologist by the one of few real Russian communists. Russian comrades probably know that I'm thinking about. I don't know. And I enjoy it very much. He always speaks in an interesting way, representing scientific views and giving examples from paleontology and history about today's society, which are somewhat relevant. Yeah. Also, expelling them from Europe was Nazis' goal, so fake state is aligned with that goal. Exactly. In fact, the fake
communism
state...
become...
The founding fathers of that fake state actually wanted to weaponize anti-Semitism for their favor, you know?
Apparently, that members of 3 anthropological schools have felt called upon to scotch it. Lowy of the Boas school has attacked it repeatedly. Malinowski, a leader of the functionalist school, branded it perhaps the most leading fallacy there is in social anthropology. Lowy has been commended by Catholic scholars for his criticism of the theory of primitive communism, and through this, his opposition to socialist doctrines. And then he adds, it would appear that an effort was being made to make the world safe for private property. You see, if you accept the idea that there was a phase of human development where there was no private property, then the logical conclusion would be that the phase of human society where there is private property may not be a permanent state of affairs. It may only be a temporary period of several thousands of years, of course, but a period which could lead to a new form of society without property again. That prospect terrifies the capitalist class, obviously, because all their wealth is based on the survival of capitalism. Now, we need to understand where oppression originated, because the question is this: is it in men's nature to be aggressive and violent and dominant? Because if it is, which some feminists do maintain that position, well, we're all on a loser, aren't we? If we are by nature, if I by nature should be going home and beating my wife, I don't do that actually, but you know, if that's my nature, and that is my instinct, well, it's pretty hopeless, isn't it, to struggle for the emancipation of women and for equality in society, because it's inbuilt.
Yeah.
Or is this aggression which we see in a certain period of human development a product of something more concrete, a product of class society, with the property that came with it? Now, the answer to those two questions will determine actually whether we can actually fight for a better society or whether we are condemned forever and ever to a permanent conflict between men and women. Now, Engels wrote his famous book on the origin of the family in 1884, and he based it mainly on Morgan, Lewis Henry Morgan's book, Ancient Society, which was published in 1877. Now, when I started looking at this, I thought, I want to see what Morgan had to say. I read Ancient Society, and you see it. You can see where Engels gets his ideas. And one of the most important ideas that he comes up with, and by the way, Morgan refers to the idea that the peoples were living in, he called it communism in living. Now, in 1877, nobody can accuse him of having any illusions in the Soviet Union. Communism there was no country like that.
Yep.
What he was referring to was communism in the way people lived, i.e. an egalitarian, working together socially, collaborating in a collective manner, consuming in a collective manner. And Morgan, I think his most important contribution was he developed the idea that it was the emergence of property which changed the relations between men and women.
Yeah, that's what I said in the that's one of the emphasis that Engels wanted to point out in his book.
It was the emergence of property, the accumulation of wealth in the hands of men, which led to the emergence of the patriarchal family, i.e. no longer the egalitarianism of early days, but a society where men dominated in the family. And this was due to the desire to pass on one's accumulated wealth. I think that's an important contribution by Morgan. Now, who was Morgan? Morgan had the destiny.
From the guy's lecture so far, it seems like the egalitarianism comes from utilitarianism. Maybe egalitarianism helps with survival. What do you mean? Not necessarily, though. Also, the stages of technological development. As I said, he can't hoard wealth when all things considered valuable are just simple tools, food, and clothes. I was implying that he also shares Marxist views, but he came to them purely through science. He also talked why he thinks socialism is the best society type for now, and he also talked about primal communism as an anthropology. Okay, that's pretty cool. Fun fact, at least 40% of all police in America abuse their wives. Well, you know what? Not surprised. Pigs used to saying shit and not being held accountable. Exactly. If one feels the need to use the term human nature at all, and if one means by that how our brain seems to default to a thing that's basically impossible to study exactly, then yes, by far, humans like most life is cooperative. I'm gonna go to take a nap and keep my laptop on. Have fun, Zetter. Have a good nap. So, how about this anti-vax movement? What? Yeah, the only wives that confess their husbands. Yeah, only the wives that confess their husbands beats them. If I remember how they got that statistic correctly. Quinoa Club, we'll get to that later. Yes. Hold on, I will keep the lecture on. I need to go to the bathroom. Bathroom break, imps. Hold on. I'm gonna leave this on though. What the hell? Okay, it will load somehow. At some point.
of early days, but a society where men dominated in the family. And this was due to the desire to pass on one's accumulated wealth. I think that's an important contribution by Morgan. Now, who was Morgan? Morgan had the destiny to become the figure loved by communists and Marxists because he gave the basic outline of the evolution of society in the family. But he was no communist himself. I mean, he was a well-to-do American. He was a lawyer. He invested in the railroads, in the mines, and his ideal of the highest form of society was the United States, because the United States didn't have a king, didn't have an aristocracy, had a democracy. It was the highest form of society, and he actually says that on more than one occasion. So why is it that he became this figure so discussed and studied by communists? Why is it that the early Social Democratic Party of Germany or the early days of the Communist Party in Russia, all party activists knew about the family structure of early societies that Morgan referred to? Well, because he provided the analysis which was the basis for Engels' text. Now, in that period, there were several anthropologists. Morgan was one of them. Tyler, Lubbock, Spencer, Maine, there were others. They all had an evolutionist approach to the history of society and the family, etc. Now, Morgan got to know the Iroquois, the Haudenosaunee, I think you pronounce it. It was a chance occurrence. He had an interest. He got to know them. He was actually adopted by the Seneca. They went through the actual ceremony of adoption. The reason being, he took an interest because he was a lawyer. These people were being defrauded of land. They were in conflict with private land companies that would do up to all kinds of tricks to basically steal their land legally. So he took an interest. But by taking this interest, he got to know them. He spent time with them. What he struck upon was the kinship terminology of these people, mother, father, and how they were used. Then he also he struck upon the rules for mating and reproduction, and who you could marry and who you couldn't marry. He noticed, for instance, that they would call all the mothers of a certain generation, all the women of a certain generation,
everyone's mom.
Mother.
Yeah.
All the fathers, father. He saw that there was a structure within a tribe in which you had.
Right? That's literally where it takes a village to raise a child came from.
Gens or clans in which you could mate only outside of your clan. You could not mate with the women of your clan because they were considered your sisters. It was a certain, in effect, it was a kind of incest taboo that had been established somehow in the long distant past. But he noticed there was such a different kinship relationship and terminology, and he took an interest in it. He described it. He actually wrote a book, The League of the Iroquois, The League of the Haudenosaunee, in which he describes all this. He then he develops this interest, and he's curious to understand where it could come from. Later in life, he did field work further west. You went to visit other indigenous peoples.
Okay, I read that.
Who spoke completely different languages to the Iroquois of the.
I was like, Comic Club, how big do these nuclear families get? Are we talking? Depends on which stage of history and which institutions are in place. Royal families, as an institution, get pretty big, since the common practice of anticonceptives. Anticonceptives. Families are getting smaller.
Of the northeast. And to his surprise, or not so much surprise, he discovered.
An FBI advisory board later found that roughly 40% of officers who filled out questionnaires in a number of different settings admitted to being physically violent with their spouse in the previous 6 months. The general population data for self-reported abuse is close to 4%. That's correct. Humans always try to diverse their gene pool because incest leads to extinction. Yeah, that's what happened to the Habsburgs. The Spanish royal family. Look at fucking look at the Habsburgs. I wonder if like anti-incestism is social learned through mishaps of ancestral births, or if it's like wired kind of like animals. Also, chat passport check. Please have a passport that is not expired and know where it is. That's true. I have driver's license from 1986. Would that work? You weren't even born. Scribble over the date.
But similar kinship relations. So he started to draw the conclusion, maybe these peoples, this goes back much, much further into the distant past of humanity. And he drew the conclusion these people must have come from Asia. And did they bring it from Asia? Maybe they did. So then he proceeded to try and study the kinship terminology of peoples around the world. And he used the Smithsonian Institute and the diplomatic network, say, of the United States, to send out a questionnaire to people all over the world. And he waited for them to come back. It took a few years, but he started getting back questionnaires about the Tamils in India, the Aborigines of Australia, and other peoples, and up pops up the structure of the tribe with the clans, the prohibition of mating within the clan, but you had to marry outside in another group. And this started to confirm his idea that maybe it does go much, much further back. So he looked into this. Now, I think he made a major contribution to our understanding of the evolution of society. Now, he didn't get everything right. He actually literally believed that when people said mother to everybody, they thought they were their mother. He drew some conclusions from that, going further back. He said it was a remnant of a previous society of group marriage, etc., which subsequent studies seem to show was a mistake on his part. He did make mistakes. How could not a man of that period not make mistakes? Even Engels in 1891, in the preface to the 1891 edition of The Origin of the Family, says in the 14 years since The Ancient Society was published, subsequent studies have disproven some of what he said. Engels would not have been closed to further discoveries and studies. It's not a dogmatic question. You base yourself on the latest science. In 1877, Morgan seemed to be the highest development in that field. But the conclusions Engels comes to is yes, some of what he said has been disproven, but the core idea hasn't. Now, when I started looking at this, I thought, I read so many who just took it for granted. Morgan and Engels were wrong, it's been superseded, no, it's false, it doesn't. I thought, I'm going to read more and more and more. And I must say, I've come to the same conclusion that Engels came to in 1891. Yes, a lot of studies, but the core idea that the family has evolved over time based on technique, the development of technique, is valid. It's valid. Because technique, if we think about it, the way we procure our food has changed. Hunter-gatherers, at a very early stage, they hunt and they gather. It's very simple. Now, before I go on to that, they have done studies, quite recent studies, on hunter-gatherer societies, hunter-gatherer groups in sub-Saharan Africa, and they've looked at the contribution to the diet of the overall family group of the women who tend to do the gathering, and not always, and the men who tend to do the hunting, although women also have been known to hunt. And they find that actually the women contribute more to the diet than the men. More,
let's go.
More is procured through hunting, through gathering, through foraging, roots, nuts, fruits, plants, herbs. In fact, it eventually leads to the women being the ones who actually developed early horticulture, i.e. the idea of planting some of these seeds and not having to go and foraging for them. Now, if you think about it, if the women are contributing at least 50% and more of the diet, there's a material basis for the egalitarian nature of hunter-gatherer societies. The men contribute, yes, but they're not the woman who has to look, the typical idea would be, it's like, the Flintstones were like us. They're Stone Age, but they're like us. They all have nuclear families or the rest of it. Primitive women of early societies had to look for a man to keep them, just like they have to today, don't they? Don't they, young women of today? Aren't you all looking for the ideal man that will keep you and feed you and clothe you as they should? You laugh, why? Because it's changed. And yet, for centuries, that was the idea. It wasn't so long ago that an American man in the 60s still would have considered it his duty to earn enough money to keep his wife at home where she should be, and he had to be the bread earner. Yeah, it's changed. I'll go back to that later on. You see, the family does change, in spite of them saying that it's always been the same. It's changed in our living memory. But there was a material basis to the egalitarianism of hunter-gatherer societies. That's been proven beyond doubt. Even today, the ones they look at, there is a greater... They've done studies on gender inequality between farmers and hunter-gatherers. And hey, what appears? There's a greater gender inequality amongst...
What about the exotic produce from the land of these? Okay. Passes out from seeing a woman vote in the 1950s?
farmers than there is amongst hunter-gatherers. What are farmers? Farming is what starts the process of the emergence of classes. Not immediately. Early farming did not immediately produce that. The traditions of egalitarianism continued in early farming society. In fact, if you look at the gens within a tribe, the land, even when it, first of all, in the early days, it would have been a territory in which you could hunt and others could not hunt in that territory. When it becomes horticulture and then agriculture, the land is still the property of the clan, the gens, and can only be inherited through the clan. It can't be inherited outside. It doesn't become individual, private.
You think there were hunter chuds who refused to eat nuts gathered by women? So I don't think they did that. They like back then societies, those types of societies were matrilinear, remember? A lot of them were matrilinear, and they put women on a very high regard. So
property. Now on the question,
they only have that kind of brain rot because of patriarchy, by the way. Classism rises with the invention of animal exploitation. No matter how much of a chud you are, starvation fucking sucks, yeah.
Question of matrilineal.
Fun fact, in the USA, it wasn't until 1974 that women could get their own credit cards and their own. Yeah, right? Women were not even allowed to have bank accounts until the 1970s.
Reality. Again, they try and portray it as, well, there are matrilineal and there are patriarchal and they are bilateral, and there's
hunter-gatherer chuds.
No real structure to it. Well, the thing is, you see, I've looked and I've found texts, and the more I read...
Yeah, listen to the lecture, though. Like, all of the things that you're trying to bring up is in here, in the lecture. Like, this guy is literally addressing it.
The further back you go, the more matrilineal societies you meet. Now, in the early days, you see, there was no strict pairing, i.e., Mr. and Mrs. You know, I, as a young boy, I remember in England in the 60s, literally you had women who were called Mrs. John Smith. And I used to think, hasn't she got even her first name of her, at least Mrs. Smith. No, Mrs. John. The complete property of the man is what that reflects, yes, historically speaking. Yeah. But in early societies, there was a degree of promiscuity. Now, I don't want to open up the whole discussion on promiscuity. I've got a whole load of reading on that, which would be very funny and interesting reading, but I'm not going to do it here. But that human beings are not strictly monogamous animals, right? Now, there was a time when a young woman...
Grifters risking their own body for internet fame and money is peak capitalism. I saw a couple eating raw chicken. What the fuck?
Was expected to be a
Are
virgin.
those like the raw meat people? Like Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson, they're like all raw meat advocates. That's why they get brain worms.
Marry her man and stay with him for the
Fucking
rest of
tapeworm in their brain from eating raw meat.
her life and know nobody else. Now, I'm not going to go around one by one and ask every one of you.
In Spanish, we even used to say woman's name of man. Yeah. Of man's name. Yeah, that's pretty fucking sad.
Whether you are monogamous or not. I would bet you're not. I wasn't, and a lot of other people weren't either. In the sense that nobody today finds the love of their life and stays with them for the rest of their lives and knows nobody else. There's a much greater freedom. In effect, we could say that in the last 100 years, we've been evolving back towards a much more natural way of being for human beings. That doesn't mean that there aren't pairing couples and that there aren't people who fall in love and stay together, etc. But strict monogamy is not human nature. And oh God, okay. Yeah, okay. A little bit louder. Okay, sorry. In the very early days, and the societies that have been observed early enough confirm that. They confirm that aspect. Now, I could jump forward to. I will do that actually. To.
Most primitive societies have like you said, they didn't have any strict pairing. So, because it didn't matter back then.
An individual called Paul Lejeune. Don't know if any of you know him. He was a French Jesuit priest who came to New France, the French colonies, to Christianize the indigenous people. Now on this, the reason I'm raising this is that when they try to deny matrilineality, they say, oh, we've studied indigenous peoples, and there's patriarchy in some of them, right? The question is, when did they study them? Because if you study the indigenous peoples of America in the 1800s, they had been in contact with European culture for 200 years by then, influenced by contact with Europeans. And I found interesting the reading of one text, which you might want to look up yourselves. It's called The Myths of Male Dominance by Eleanor Burke Leacock. She's an American anthropologist. It's interesting. Americans have produced some really interesting anthropologists of a progressive nature. She went and did field work amongst what was called the Montagnais Naskapé. I think they're called the Innu now, of northeastern Canada. But in the 50s, obviously, you cannot hope to find the historical relations of these peoples. And it's not enough simply to say, oh, I did field work, I observed them, this is how they are. That's where Paul Lejeune comes in.
Woke DI.
Because he is a man of the 1600s. And he made a huge effort to Christianize these people. And he spent the winter of 1633-34 with them to befriend them in the process of Christianizing them. Now, he found some problems. He started out with a typical European patriarchal approach. All I have to do is convince the men, job done. And he realized, no, it doesn't work like that. It's not enough to convince the men, because the men don't control the women. The men don't dominate the women. They're egalitarian. And he said, he spent a lot of time trying to do this, and lots of European colonists have done this. They go to these peoples thinking they're going to find a society where men dominate. He sat down with one of these chiefs and he tried to explain to this chief the niceties of French civilization. And he was standing there with his son, and he said to him, this son of yours, for example, you say he's your son. How do you know he's your son? You let your women have sex with other men. he might not be your son. You know what the answer of the chief was? It's a famous quote. He said, you know what the problem with you French? You love only your children. We love all the children of the tribe.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
bring up all the children together. Basically, it does not matter to us.
Yes.
Now, here's a quote
He
from
just
Lejeune.
answered your
He says
question.
this, the Montagnais, the Innu, they prefer to take the children of their sisters as heirs rather than their own,
Like I said, listen to the lecture.
or than those of their brothers, calling in question the fidelity of their wives and being unable to doubt that these nephews came from their blood. Now, what he's describing is a matrilineal society. Why the children of their sisters? Well, you see, a man can be absolutely sure that his sister's children are his nephews and nieces. Why? Because his sister is definitely his sister, because she was born of the same mother. But he says they don't trust, for instance, their brothers' wives. Now, in the logic of a French Jesuit, he thinks it's because they don't trust them to be their fidelity. What he doesn't understand is that in actual fact, there was a freedom, a sexual freedom in these peoples, and they were matrilineal. Now, the point Leacock is making here is, this is a description, actually by quite a reactionary. Actually, bastard, if you think what he did. I'll describe what he did afterwards. But
fuck this. Yeah, fuck the Jesuits. Basically, all those priests.
he's describing these people before contact with Europeans.
Yeah.
And the kind of family relations, which confirms
Is already ascribing, value to how their societies work based on the European standards,
what Morgan said about
So
the matrilineal
stupid.
nature of these peoples. Now, he tried to convince the young ones that he was trying to Christianize, that you
The very notion of my children is already suspect. Why do we use possessive pronouns? Yeah. Right? It implies your children, as if all children aren't to be taken care of and protected, right? The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. The saying is attributed to African tribes. Right, yeah. But that's true though. Just look at the fucking school shooters. Those are basically the children who were not embraced by the village. Look at how they went,
You must stay with the same person for the rest of your life. Again, I quote Lejeune, the young people do not think that they can persevere in the state of matrimony with a bad wife or a bad husband.
True, the village is non-existent nowadays. Exactly. And we don't even have third spaces for that either.
They wish to be free.
Like I said, you know why the village does not exist anymore? Because of the nuclear family. Yeah, now you understand why we need to abolish the nuclear family. Yeah, why is this even my topic? Right? Because that's the point. That's the point, because the village is disappearing.
And to be able to divorce the consort if they do not love each other. Now think about it. Who is civilizing who?
Yeah.
The French Jesuit actually spent time trying to get them to understand the need to beat their wives.
What the
He would say, look, no French man is told what to do by their women, and you should be the same. And he really...
That is fucking crazy. Imagine trying to say like, oh, we civilize these people by teaching them that they should beat their wives. Like, that's exactly the chud in the chat earlier. Like, we civilize their society. Now, what the fuck? They're actually like more primitive, like beating their own wives. The fuck?
realizes that
Chud versus chat.
it's not enough to convince the men, got to convince the women. But then he realizes those that have been brought up in this culture, it's very difficult. And he's thinking, if I baptize these young people, they may not behave like Christians. They may revert to their bad habits of not wanting to be with somebody they don't love, terrible thing. So he draws the conclusion, you read it, we need to take their children. And we need to take them away from them. Because He actually says it in one of his texts. If we have the schools for these children in the neighborhood of the tribe or this group of people, these indigenous people, if they see the way we treat the children, they will come and take them away. Because they didn't beat their children. They didn't beat their wives and they didn't beat their children. He describes one scene where one young woman, they can't convince her of the advantages of French civilization.
Yeah.
And culture. And
Imagine that. Like, oh, this is actually how you should conduct society. And they were like, no, what the fuck? Fuck that shit. We're going to discuss why society feels hostile in some other stream. Yeah. Returning to that interview I was talking earlier, the anthropologist specifically said that humans are evolutionary stressed when they come across more than 25 people, as we are adapted to small and bonded groups. That's why cities are not reproducing while villages are, even though young people flee from there. Yeah. Patriarchy is older than capitalism. We know the Greeks, at least, were hella patriarchal. Yeah. This idea of taking children from their families is exactly what led to the residential schools in Canada. And in the United States as well, right? Which the last one closed down in 1996, almost 30 years ago. Imagine refusing such good deal.
behavior, that she has to accept fidelity to the man, etc., etc. Because they can't convince her, they decide they're going to take her away to a dungeon. That'll teach her a bit of time in a dungeon.
Christ.
By then, he had Christianized some of the indigenous people, and the first Christianized were the most zealot of, devout Christians, fanatical Christians. They were physically manhandling, taking away this girl, and the others who had not been Christianized tried to intervene.
It was an eye-opener after reading Engels. Yeah,
Others
exactly.
threatened them, actually, we will do anything for God, I will kill you. So they backed off. But they were disgusted at this scene. This is the civilizing effect of European culture on these people. But you see, it wasn't just a product of a priest sitting down and trying to convince. What Leacock explains, and I think is quite a convincing argument, is that contact with the Europeans changed the nature of the society in North America amongst the Indians.
Yeah, like I said, that's why all the colonizers should burn for what they did, for all the genocides that they committed.
Indigenous peoples. For example, these people that she studied, who, as we can see, in the 1600s were still matrilineal and egalitarian, and a degree of promiscuity amongst them. When the whites arrive, French and English, they start trading furs. The men of the Naskape, the Innu, start hunting beavers, not for food that they need. They didn't go extinct when they were hunting for what they needed.
Yeah.
Now they started hunting on a large scale. They describe how one man and maybe his son would have 300 traps in a line in the forest, and they would spend the whole hunting season manning the traps, catching the beavers, killing them, skinning them, and then at the end of the season they would come down to the river or the lake, wherever, with them, and waiting for the English or the French ships to arrive to trade the furs. In exchange, they would get food, they would get clothing, they would get tools. The way they lived had changed.
Yeah.
And this had a huge impact on the family. Because now, instead of the egalitarian nature of society, the men were starting to become the earners. Some of the men sometimes would get occasional wage labor and get paid for their work. So the way they procured their means of existence, as Morgan pointed out, changed from a collective egalitarian hunter-gatherer society to trading with, basically they'd become part of capitalism.
Yeah.
They were hunting a product, a good which could be exchanged, and it radically changed the family relations.
Yes.
Then you get anthropologists of the 18th, 19th century, 20th century, and they said, oh, we've studied them. They're patrilineal, they're patriarchal. Ignoring that there was an evolution already that had taken place
Yes.
under the impact of
This is why we need to study history and like, the evolution of human societies, right? Through a Marxist perspective. Because some of these historians do not have that kind of concept. I vote the French and British murderers for the concept that for a number of families, children at the age of 18 had to leave the family home on account of having to be independent. Yeah, right? Would it be reasonable to conclude that the nuclear family is responsible for... Yes, it is. It is definitely that. Yes. So they would be forced to leave, and what? Who benefits from that? Real estate developers, Because, yeah, instead of like living in one home, they would have to live and either buy a house or find an apartment to pay rent. Profit. It's profit driven. As far as I know, racism is a way more recent thing. There were vast amounts of time where race wasn't a concept. Colonization apologists are like babies, the way if it's not happening in front of them, it doesn't exist. Exactly. Evolutionary stress isn't a well-known term or even a niche term. Seems like a term that anthropologists made up. A mechanism for hoarding wealth was introduced. Yeah. So sad to say, every time that term colony of ancient Greek origins was twisted and corrupted that much that now it is only associated with imperialism and oppression. Well, oh well. I don't really give a shit though. It was just as bad even back then. Terms change, so,
contact with capitalism. Now that's one important point which I found in the reading, which I found...
It was made up by me because I didn't figure out how to formulate. We evolutionarily made that way, so mistranslation. Anthropology without a Marxist analysis feels so incomplete. Yeah. By the way, like it's just like, but it also is relating society from the perspective of the conquerors, I see you don't know a lot about ancient Greek colonies. Platinum Chip is literally Greek. He's from Greece. I'm trying to move out because my family is toxic. If they weren't, I wouldn't leave because it's better for me. Yeah. It really depends too, Hugs, the planetary entity, yeah. I see what you mean by reproducing, as in having children. Capitalism benefits tremendously from the nuclear family. They can sell us everything, double, triple, etc. What big family would have only one washer? Now everyone needs one. Yeah, exactly. We need extra microwaves.
Find it is a materialist explanation.
Yeah, also very situational. Like right now we have a fucked up society because, our parents, some of our parents are fucked up because capitalism fucked them up too, So you got to do what you got to do to fend for yourself. I think it should count as toxic if your parents kick you out or force you to pay rent once you... Yeah, it is definitely. Like, to be honest, as an Asian, we don't really have that. My parents would never do that. Like, as far as they're concerned, I could live with them until I get married. They don't give a shit.
For the change in the...
And the fact that I'm their youngest kid, like, all the more that they want me to stay with them. Probably even after I get married, if I tell them I want to stay with you guys, they would probably be like, yeah, well, get your you and your spouse can live with us. But that's just how Asian families are most of the time, you know. Well, because capitalism is awful, it's hard because I'm autistic and can't get jobs that pay enough or even find one to begin with. Thank God I'm not visibly queer because I'd be playing on double hard mode. Yeah, that's true. Especially in America. I can't imagine, you know. Valle de Aragon. Ah, what? In Mexico, we call neighborhood colonials for some reason. So nanda. Even worse, the way as colonies back then were just settlements away from main policies, and Greeks colonized the entire Mediterranean Sea and Black Sea. They didn't conquer anyone, just built towns on vacant places as far as I know. Antique history. Ah. It's a very bad place. Really? Can you describe what goes on there? I'm not American, I'm Canadian. Oh, you're Canadian. Okay. But what's the difference? Yeah, you're in North America.
Family. But let's go back to the history of society and the family.
Well, at least you have a bit of a semblance of healthcare, right?
Homo sapiens has been around for about 300,000 years. That's the latest discoveries. And agriculture came into being about 12,000 years ago, 10, 12,000 years ago. It depends on different parts of the world. In the Middle East,
Canada soon to be America. Yeah.
In particular, is where this first emerged. Now, this is the Neolithic revolution. From that known moment in history to the emergence of the first historically known societies, we have the historically recorded societies, civilizations, the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Sumer, etc. They're all patriarchal by the time they emerge. But they are also all class societies. You have slavery, you have private property, you have a privileged elite and a mass of people working. The passage had taken place sometime in that period. Not automatically, agriculture doesn't immediately produce that, but agriculture and the development of technique, the development of tools, ploughing, etc., eventually leads to a surplus accumulated in the hands of a few who want to pass on their property. Now, if you look at ancient Greece as known in history, it's an extremely patriarchal society.
Ancient Greek mentioned. Ancient Greek cities-states were constantly fighting each other and conquering each other. Well, like, what do you mean? Yeah, they're
the ancient Greeks, great philosophers and great thinkers. How did they treat their women? Ancient Greece, the women could not be seen outside the house. They could not go out freely. If a man came from outside, the woman had to be secluded at the back of the house. You see, you recognize something here, don't you? You would, from where you come from, in certain parts of Pakistan.
My patriarchal state mentioned. Once again, lecture will address any topic we... Exactly! See? Just pay attention! Ancient Greece mentioned, what the fuck is basic human empathy? Hey, let's ask ancient wise man philosopher Aristotle his thoughts about women. Philosopher kings! Was that Plato? Plato
That is
was
still the case today.
Was Plato the one with the like wet dreams about philosopher kings? Or was it Aristotle?
The veil, just on passant.
That was Plato, right?
You know, was not
Plato and its philosopher kings. Yes.
Invented by Islam. It goes back millennia in the Middle East.
Philosopher
to a period where
king homoerotic tyranny. Okay. Ancient Greece is fascinating contradiction. They were gay as fuck, which is good, but violently patriarchal, which is bad. Right? They were definitely like but then again, you know, they also practice pedestry, right? So they basically legalized you know, they basically legalized being Drake with boys, you know?
Extreme control of women's
Drake
sexuality was imposed. Why? Because
being Drake with A minor boys.
They had to impose monogamy, strict monogamy, but as Marx and Engels both say, for the women only. By the way, a parallel development to this is the first time that you have
Oh yeah, well, us in the modern day are gay because we like men. Ancient Greece is gay because they hate women. We are not the same. That's true. I heard Islam in Middle East and hauled. I heard Islam in Middle East and hauled ass to come back. Weren't Sicilians and Etruscans actually ancient Greek colonies, and Persians were the big empire and invaded Greece on multiple occasions? Only Alexander the Great conquered them. In politics, Aristotle writes that male is by nature superior and the female inferior, the male ruler and the female subject. Yeah.
prostitution. You know, they say that prostitution is the oldest trade. It's not. It's bollocks. Hunter-gathering is the oldest trade in the world, not prostitution. Prostitution is a relatively recent phenomenon in the last 10,000 years or so. It comes into being with class society because you see, once you have property, and once you have the men controlling the property, and the desire to pass your property onto your offspring, how do you guarantee that your offspring are your offspring? My dad used to joke whenever a friend
monogamy
would come round. Oh, nice little boy you got there, your son. He said, well, yeah, he's his mother's son. He was joking. I was his son too. I actually looked like him. So I think.
See, human nature was used to justify patriarchy already by 2500 BC. Yeah, oldest profession in the world, my ass. Gives, I've already drawn you as the Chud and me as the Chad Wojak energy. Yeah.
I think I was. But he was joking with the idea was, you never know, right? That was the joke. But in that joke, there is a truth. And
I'm so brain rotted the way he says property flashes. I bought a property in Egypt meme in my in my mind. Does Sappho count? I think she was mostly a poet, though. Were there any philosophers in ancient Greece? Not colonists. They were indigenous people that got invaded by Greeks. Then the Greeks Hellenized some. Greek colonization of Anatolia happened before the existence of the Persian Empire, but indigenous people indigenous Persian people existed.
How can you make sure? You have to control very strictly the sexuality of the women. And ancient Greece showed that. Now that came from somewhere. It
Sexuality and reproduction.
Wasn't always like that. There's another source we can take a look at, which is the evolution of the ancient religions. I have here an article on Sumer. It's called State Formation in Sumer and the Subjugation of Women. And very interesting article which points out and actually outlines the evolution of the religion of Sumer, which shows that there were powerful goddesses in the early days, that women had a much more equal relationship, had a greater role in society, but gradually the religion changes from goddesses, sometimes very powerful goddesses. It goes through stages. The gods start to appear, and then eventually the goddesses are demoted, and you have an all-powerful male god. There's a book by Diva called Did God Have a Wife? Very interesting. He's an archaeologist that has gone to Israel, Palestine, and has found all the archaeological evidence that proves that Yahweh had a wife. She was called the Queen of the Heavens. That there was a period in which this was a powerful figure.
Sumer, Mesopotamia. Yes, Zitter, your ancient ancestors.
In the religion. The symbol of this
printed pictures will always be funny to me.
This goddess was the tree.
Instantly corrected it based, yeah. Israel, Palestine.
Now, why would it be the tree? Well, think about it. In a society where you don't...
That's good that he self-corrected, though.
really know exactly how we reproduce, the actual science behind it. Women are these fantastic beings that produce fruit. They regularly produce new life. Like trees produce fruit that can be picked, women produce the next generation. And they were actually revered because of this in ancient societies. And that was part of the egalitarianism of the hunter-gatherer societies. But you see, when God says we shall create them in our image, again, ask yourself, why does he say our? I don't know, was God a transgender individual? They didn't like to be called, didn't be regarded as a single individual. The truth is because that text probably belongs to a period when he had a wife, and it was evident. He didn't create us in his image. We created him in our image. We know that. All the religions reflect the structure of society at a given moment. And as the structure of society changes from an egalitarian, matrilineal society to a patriarchal one, the goddesses are demoted, and an all-powerful male god appears. First as the father of all the gods, like Zeus, like Odin, in all of these societies. But eventually, we end up with the one god, with no wife, no women whatsoever in the religion. And it's an all-powerful, and if you look at the Old Testament, he's an all-powerful, very angry, very powerful, very violent god, very jealous god.
Yeah, I've heard of like the Epic of Gilgamesh, yes.
And he there's a lot of the
Yahweh that feel when no wife. Like how are women not worshipped when they grow literal humans? Exactly. They were worshipped though back then. Greek history is a complicated thing when Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations were overrun by the folks of the sea during the collapse of the Bronze Age. And that's where a classic period of ancient Greece starts, if I remember correctly. Those folks consisted of many folks, no joke, and colonized almost every coast of Mediterranean Sea. I believe Etruscans and Sicilian folk were part of them, and the first ones fought even ancient Rome. They're still stuck with a Greek. Mark and Platinum are still stuck with Greek civilization.
evidence in the archaeology for this, because they found these statues of the figure of Ashura is a woman with two lions by her, hands on the lion, and in the same clay image there's the tree, which is the symbol of Ashura.
The oldest text we know is a Yahweh fanfic with burly men wrestling. Yes, yes. In the Bible, for example, Jesus' family tree has his exclusively patriarchal lineage until Abraham.
She disappears. But it's the same with ancient Greek religion, ancient Roman religion. In all of them, if you go back far enough,
I love ancient Greeks.
You find a
well, then you're talking to a modern Greek who's also a medical doctor, so enjoy your chat with Platinum.
Previous stage where the female gods, the goddesses, were more important. What leads to the demotion of woman in heaven is the demotion of woman on earth, in our society. And we change the religion in the skies, let's say.
Yahweh is the oldest form of story writing. What is the chat getting? Where is the chat going? I'll be interested in a Marxist analysis of ancient Japan of something. I'm guessing someone has already done that, but I haven't found it yet. I think you can find something interesting in this podcast called Against Japanism. It's by like a Marxist Japanese guy. I think he's living in Canada. But he's like, what do you call this? He is from Japan and he moved to Canada. Demoted like the goddess, I guess. Yeah. Nice. I would love to read Sanagba Imuru, an original on clay tablets. Too bad I can't read cuneiform writing. Aren't there any like modern translations? We always have Sappho of Lesbos. Yeah, true. But that's like it's very few. Just pop it in DeepSeek. Accurate translation, 100%. That is correct approach because we are talking about 10k years of colonialism and counter-colonialism. A correct take is to say that initial migration of the Greek generations to mainland Greece and the island wasn't colonialism. That was just called migration. That's why it's called migration. Yeah, always a general term for male and male sexual love.
In line with the society we live in. When men become dominant, the religion has to be one where the male figure is dominant.
Yeah.
The women are subservient.
The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
And obedient, and women must know their place. And monogamy is imposed, but as I said, only for the women. If any of you have read the Old Testament and you see Abraham, how many wives did Abraham have? How many women did he have?
That's a lot.
Are we supposed to be husband and wife for life because the Bible teaches us? You read the Old Testament and you will find Jacob and all the... They have more than one wife.
Yes.
A little detail that when I went to a Catholic school and I was educated, the teacher never...
As someone in a Catholic country, I was always like, so where's the mother? I'm not Christian, and for the longest time I thought the Holy Spirit was a woman.
Pointed that little detail out.
But it's always like male coded though, you know? Like anything in Christianity is like male coded.
Because it would contradict the idea that it's the natural way and always has been. No.
Yeah, Abraham's sons also had several wives. They did.
They were not. They had more. Abraham, actually, the first son is not even with his wife. It's with the concubine because the maid, because his wife couldn't give him one. Then God is magnanimous, and at the age of 90, he lets her have a baby.
Yeah, she had a baby at the age of 90. Like, what? Can you fucking believe that shit?
That's the story in the Bible, anyway.
Was it like Isaac?
But the religions change in reflecting the change in the structure of society. So
Abraham even got offered to have sex with his wife's maid by his wife herself because she couldn't give him he couldn't give him an heir. Bible ages are wild because crazy fertility technology they had back then. Yeah, that's why you can tell like, man, this should be fucking cap, bro, because like people today have to do like IVF treatments to conceive children, like at when a woman is near the menopausal age and shit like that. But then dead ass what was her name? Sarah? I think it was Sarah, Abraham's wife. Fucking got preggy at the age of 90. Like that's how you can tell it's fucking just cap. It's all cap. Now I'm Irish. God is a woman, or my mom is going to kill me. Or maybe they countered years twice. My Lord for impregnating. Thank you, my Lord, for impregnating me in the sleep against my will. My husband will understand. Noah lived to be like 950 according to the Bible.
What I'm trying to say,
I guess I mean, I've read like some some, what do you call this? Some interpretations of it, like that like some theological explanations that back then, I don't know, the life force is still, the God's spirit is still near them. That's why they lived longer, I guess, whatever the fuck that means.
You can go back to somebody like Lejeune to see what the indigenous people were like before contact. But you can go even more.
Why not make it sound plausible if it's fiction regardless? I know, right? There's so many plot holes. Actually, it was the devil haunting Abraham's dream. Insert nerd emoji. Like maybe it means that it took 90 years to finish her story. I love religion for being like a lot of places culture, not Abrahamic all, but I'm reconsidering. That sounds like anime logic. Which version is this one?
Much further back in history and study the original sources of
God.
religion, and you see these changes which all indicate a transition from matrilineal to patrilineal. It's reflected in the religion. Now, Morgan was an evolutionist, and the anthropologists of the 19th century were mainly evolutionists. Unfortunately, they were also, not referring to Morgan, he was one of the few who did field work, but some of them had an idea that yes, there is evolution, but they used it in a reactionary way. The white-skinned North European is the highest product of human evolution. That was the idea they had.
Oh my God.
You had theories like monogenesis, polygenesis.
Yeah.
i.e. God created us all equal, yes, but some of us degenerated. Some of us degenerated and became.
Which reminds me of, do you guys know like the creation story of like the Mormon version of the creation story? Oh my fucking God. Holy fucking God. Do you guys know? What the hell?
Black and primitive.
Like black, yes, like black people supposedly got cursed by, yeah. Same people who had no spice in on their food, yeah. I'm talking about the story in the Quran. It's yeah. The Mormon creation story is fucking wild.
And savages, and others remained the superior being that God had created. Others thought, no, he created us more primitive, but some of us evolved and became superior. The end story is always the same. The whites were somehow superior, and they was.
I can't take any religion with magic underpants and having your bro shake your bed while you bang. Seriously, yeah. But yeah, that's why I brought up the Mormon creation story, because it's the wildest shit ever.
Scientific basis for that. That was the
Like at the very least, like the Abrahamic God, like, you know, the Abrahamic religions have like a somewhat interesting like creation story, but the Mormons just are fucking racist. The Mormon creation story is just racist as shit, you know? Like it's not even veiled. It's just like, yeah, well, you know, black people are just cursed. You know, the fuck? We all know the real creation story is that of Yaqub creating white people to spite everyone. Oh my God. Mormons are the only religion that get into heaven, though. Yeah. If we are all so cursed, why did they come to steal our spices from us? Yeah. I know, right? I think that black people were supposedly the descendants of Cain, committer of the first murder. Yeah, the first sin. The original, no, not the original sin. It was Adam and Eve. But the first murder, rather. You're right, T-Color. Thanks for the info, comrade. Curse with the mark of Cain. Yeah. It is racist as shit. They just changed it in the 70s.
That's extremely reactionary, but also
They
very
backtracked.
useful to the imperialists of the time. Because when you go and treat, especially the way they treated the black African people, enslaving them in horrendous conditions, you've got to somehow justify that. And how do you do it? You declare them to be subhuman. The president of the American Anthropological Society in 1901 actually says that. They're subhuman. And it's to justify the horrendous oppression of these people. And then
yes, that's why you need to dehumanize other people, other human beings, in order to justify slavery, justify inequality. Dehumanize.
had degrees of inferiority. the superior ones were the Anglo-Saxons. They were the British, the Germans, the Scandinavians, North Europe, Southern Europe, Italians and Spanish. They were already not really white. The East Europeans, strangely enough, very white, but not at the level of the North Europeans. It was all a nice story, which was backed up by so-called science, which dominated society.
Phrenology. There's science. Phrenology.
I'm going to try and do this telegraphically.
Eugenics.
An individual called Franz Boas, who was a German of Jewish background, who came to America and became a professor of anthropology, I think, at Columbia University. Originally, he accepted these ideas, but he was given the task, for instance, of measuring people's craniums.
Phrenology. Yeah, I was right.
To establish if there was a...
I was right.
There must be a scientific basis to why black people are inferior to white people.
Oh my God.
So measure their craniums.
Yeah.
Which he did. He measured thousands of them. And he came to the conclusion that
this bullshit, yeah.
Because the size of a black person's brain can be bigger or smaller in the same way that of a white person can be bigger or smaller.
There's
now,
no
he
difference.
said if I had to classify them, I'd have to put a bunch of white people and black people and indigenous people in this category and a bunch of in this other category, because it just doesn't make sense. There's no scientific basis to it. And to his credit, he combated the racism. And he had to fight against the stream, in actual fact, because the dominant views in American science of the time was that all this other stuff was scientifically based. He combated it. Now, I'm going to have to be very telegraphic. The unfortunate thing is this. He started out by saying, we must do a lot more concrete field work before we can develop laws of development and analysis, etc. Which he did. He proceeded to accumulate. Him and his all his students, who became quite famous anthropologists, like Ruth Benedict, Margaret Mead, Lowy, a lot of the Boasians, basically. But he drew the conclusion, by looking at the different, such a variety of different societies, he actually says, I'll quote it, it's from his Anthropology in Modern Life. He says, where is it? I'm trying to find it. Laws of development, except in most generalized forms, cannot be established, and a detailed course of growth cannot be predicted. And basically, all we can do, he says, is study the phenomena in front of us, i.e., look at each individual case, but you can't generalize. Now, what happened was, in the 20th century, there was a reaction against Morgan and Engels and the materialist and evolutionist approach to this question. But it fits the needs of the capitalist class, because the capitalist class cannot accept an idea which says the families evolve through different phases. And the great thing about Morgan, he actually says, he calls it the monogamian. The monogamous family has served us well so far.
Real measurehead hours. I am craniometric perfection. Look at me. They should measure my manapple head. I am perfection. I have the perfect head. The science back then is like... It's so ridiculous that thousands and thousands upon thousands of people died because of bad science. Thousands of lives were ruined because of bad science. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this timeline. That doesn't really matter how the modern iteration of the story is understood. If it's been corrupted at some point, then everyone is cooked. I've been around Muslim of many denominations. I've never heard the interpretation entailing the devil's role in Abraham and Ishmael's story. That's why I'm confused. Yeah. Subhuman. Where did I hear that one before? Perhaps not a shitty painter with a bad mustache. Exactly. He got inspired by the inequality and the slavery in by Jim Crow in America, right? Americans even organized Olympics for the other races to show up how inferior they were. They made literal zoo with kidnapped indigenous. Yeah, exactly. I remember the comment of a Russian guy about priests in churches saying to read the Bible. I read that book. Still can't understand what those epic adventures of Jews in Africa have to do with Russia. What? I don't know, the curvature of the Manapo, it proves mana at least 180 IQ. Exactly. Exactly, I'm big brain. I have the biggest brain. The Manapo brain is the most beautiful brain that you have ever seen.
But if society should continue to evolve, it could further change. So he leaves it open to a further change in society. Engels takes that much further, and he actually says the future generations will decide how they should relate to each other.
My head look good, ooga booga, me good white. So many cures made things worse. It's ridiculous shit, yeah. There's a lot of bad science today too, but they can be easily disproved. So
It's not our task to dictate
at the very not as widely imposed as back then, you know. Fuck. To justify colonialism, basically.
to the future generations how they're going to, what kind of sexual relations they're going to have. Now, these ideas were a threat to
China totally respects Donald Trump's very, 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 very large brain.
bourgeois society. Now, in particular, after 1917, the Bolsheviks come to power. And they try to act on the ideas of Engels, which he had elaborated, basing themselves on the analysis of Morgan.
What do you mean? We still have like an imperial family. We're like the British, you know? The fuck?
Yeah. What did Morgan? What did the Bolsheviks do? Well, remember what they did. They introduced abortion.
Every year, the emperor will literally like step out of their like, I don't know, viewing area in their imperial palace, and the people will be like, "Oh my God, the emperor!" And then the empress of the royal basically the imperial family would show up and show themselves to the public. And I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, actually. I don't give a fuck. But that's like the tradition every year.
For all women, available for all women. They
Don't know the well. There, it's just like like I said, it's just like the UK. They don't really have any political power, but you know they're just there for decoration, like how the royal family, the British royal family functions in the UK. Basically the same in Japan, you know. They have their quote unquote duties to fulfill, like doing, I don't know, philanthropy and whatever the fuck. And basically that's their job, and we are paid for by our taxes, you know.
They decriminalized homosexuality.
We are funding their lifestyles.
Made divorce a very simple procedure. They abolished the concept of illegitimate children. A swathe of very radical advanced reforms because they were basing themselves on Engels. Now, unfortunately, and I can't go into it here, obviously the Soviet Union, because it was so backward, economically speaking, 85% of the population were peasants, most of them illiterate, and because of the isolation of the revolution in one country, in a backward country, they didn't have the material resources to act fully on those reforms and to maintain them fully. In fact, in the 30s, they abolish abortion, they make divorce more difficult, and they recriminalize homosexuality. This is the reaction of the bureaucracy. But for a period, the Bolsheviks gave the world a view.
You know what? I don't really know if they actually pay taxes. Maybe they don't. Because their salary is basically our taxes, though. Like the money that fund their life is our taxes. So taxing them from our tax, what does that even mean? Yeah, that's why the Americans cannot execute the emperor back then. They couldn't do that because Japanese society would have crumbled, and it would have caused like civil unrest and, you know, a lot of some dumb shit that would have happened. So they kept the emperor. And literally our emperor right now, right, the current emperor is the grandson of the war criminal, right?
Of what genuine communists could achieve in terms of...
I kind of get why China hasn't forgiven Japan yet, though, if they still have an emperor. I mean, yes. Also, do you know the issue about like Japanese prime ministers visiting Yasukuni Shrine? That's literally been a thing, you know. That's like that not only Chinese people get mad at that, the Koreans too, you know? Because they also got invaded by the Imperial Army.
Family relations. That became something they had to combat. They had to combat it. I've got it here. Marvin Harris, another American anthropologist, in a text called The Rise of Anthropological Theory, published in 1968. So it's worth reading. He says, he explains the modern anthropology entered the 20th century with the mandate to, quote,
Japan has not apologized for a lot of what they like the current sitting party is very they did a lot of historical revisionism. So you can just imagine the kind of textbooks that we have here about that issue, you know? You can only imagine.
Quote, to expose Morgan's scheme and destroy the...
I will not say more because I live here, so I don't want to go to jail, okay? Look it up. It's everywhere, you know? It's on the internet. You can find it.
Method on which it was based, i.e. the method of social evolution based on the evolution of technique, basically of the means of production. Ever since then, in reality, in anthropology, we've had a battle against a materialist, evolutionist approach to the family.
Not so much as no free speech, but you're going to be heavily censored. Like, there's a lot of heavy censorship in the media, of course. Like, everywhere.
And reactionary ideas dominate. There were anthropologists like Leslie White, which I quoted before. I've really got to quote this one. He says, this shows you how, you know, the postmodernists...
You're Iraqi? I know, right? So unfair.
It's about ideas. It's all about words. You change the word and you change the essence. Not necessarily so. And he says, because, you know, you can have what's called an abstraction.
It feels rare to see an Iraqi. I'm Kuwaiti. You're literally neighbors. You're literally in the same region.
And they say, he quotes them, he says, how can science have a subject matter which cannot be perceived? There is no science that has an invisible...
Can you forgive me for being American, Zetir? No forgiveness for Americans. Just kidding. All of them across the world are furious that the evil Bolsheviks executed good emperor and his family. I know, right?
Imperceptible, intangible subject matter. There is not and cannot be one.
Forgive me for having an emote of war crimes.
Then because the abstractionists, he says, have jockeyed themselves into the position...
Only if you throw shoes on Bush. Throw shoes at
culture
everyone.
Culture is imperceptible. You can't see
every
culture.
President ever.
So does it exist? Does it exist? I can't actually draw on this a map of culture. I can't draw you a picture of culture. I can't describe what color it is or how big it is. But it exists. Who can deny it? But he says, because of that, they say, the next logical question to be raised is, and he quotes, is culture real? Indeed. Does it exist? And then he quotes, this is a question that Ralph Linton asked. And then he quotes Radcliffe Brown. He says, culture is a word that designates no concrete reality, but only an abstraction, and a very
abstractions jockey their positions in culture, so they appear imperceptible. Yeah, what the fuck? Cheney's a real villain, yeah.
Vague abstraction at that. And then he goes on to say, quote, Spiro, another anthropologist, who says that culture has no ontological reality. And Leslie White says by this, he evidently means that culture is not real. Thus, they have defined culture out of existence, thinking something out of existence. Lewis White says, if one can get oneself into a situation like this by thinking, maybe one can get oneself out of it by thinking, though by a different kind of thinking. And I would say it would be an evolutionist, materialist, dialectical materialist way of thinking.
Yeah.
You can solve this problem. Now, as I said earlier on, hunter-gatherer societies have been shown to be extremely egalitarian. The passage to farming eventually produces the surplus that produces the early forms of class society. When you have property in goods, you can have property also in human beings. Slavery appears. Women become property,
Yes.
which they weren't before. In the ancient Romans, the pater familias, the head of the family, he was literally the owner of everything in the family. Wife, children, slaves, animals. And he had all power over them. If you read the Old Testament, what do you do to an adulterous wife? You stone her to death. You have to introduce extreme forms of punishment to force women to accept the monogamy imposed on them. Now, the 20th century anthropology tries to remove a historical view, an evolutionist, materialist view of this, and deny that this is valid. Now, I've got other things here I'd like to list, but I can't. But just to conclude on one thing, we as Marxists would argue that what I've just listed here is a very brief explanation. You can read the article and maybe even read some of the books which I've quoted. It's worth doing. There has been an evolution. Class society is where women were demoted from the egalitarian position into property of the men. And that took place thousands of years ago. But what has happened in the last 80 to 100 years? At the beginning, I asked you, is it your aim to find the man of your life? Or should it be my aim to find the man or the woman of my life, or whatever? No. That doesn't mean that people don't pair, that people don't fall in love, we're not arguing that. But it has changed. Think about this. In the United States of America, 50% of marriages end in divorce.
It means I want to assume my culture is not culture that is take it as natural and universal. But what about an adulterous man? There's no such thing, because men can take how many wives as they can, you know?
That's very different to what it would have been 100 years ago. 40% of babies in the United States are born to women who are not married. That's one hell of a change that's taken place. And in the last 70 or 80 years, the family has changed more than in the previous 10,000 years. That's a fact. And it's a fact we can touch with our hands. What is the material basis for this? Women have come into the labor market more and more and more.
It's not adultery. It's legal for a man to have many wives in the... Yes, exactly.
Capitalism has actually created that. Capitalism in the last 50 years has created a family where the husband and wife must go to work, both of them, if they're to pay the rent, the mortgage, and keep the family. It's a material question. They've also, I've got the facts and figures.
If anything, these trad wife, like these, what do you call this? Like traditional family values chuds need to blame capitalism, because that literally forces women to go to work, you know?
Reduced the real wages of individuals. There was a time when a man's wages did include
ownership as a concept hinges on the chaining of women in the service of maintaining male hierarchies.
The wife's needs, because they could feed, clothes, and give money to the wife, etc. No longer can a man do that, because the real wages relative to the overall economy has been reduced. Now, to maintain the same standard of living as 50 years ago, you need two wages coming into the house. But this has a very progressive side to it. Women are not longer tied to the hearth, to the kitchen. etc., they are in the labor movement. They're in the workplace. Young women go.
What's worse is that women have to work, right? We have to, like, we're expected to work, but also at the same time manage the fucking household. Like these motherfuckers on Twitter or like on online complaining about why aren't women like, you know, why aren't women like doing this for us anymore? Yeah, because she's fucking tired, bro. Maybe you should wash the dishes for once in your fucking life. It angers me to no end. Like I can't. Because they're like, oh, why do I have to like do all the household chores? Why do I have to share like household chores with my partner, with my woman, when she's a woman? You know, she should be doing all the woman work, like doing the laundry and basically doing basic skills of adulting, you know, washing the dishes, doing the laundry and shit like that.
Go to college,
cooking,
they get degrees, they
fuck?
get jobs, and with that comes a wage. And with
men don't do housework because they are the breadwinners, haven't been breadwinners for decades. And yeah, exactly. Revolution starts in the sink, comrade. Do your own dishes.
that comes a degree of
Yeah.
independence. Now, I'm not saying that we live in an idyllic world.
Work, be a mother to a husband, be a mother to kids, and also you have to maintain sexual relationship to your husband, or else he would find somewhere else, you know, like, oh, my wife is not paying attention to me anymore, so, you know, like I had no choice but to cheat, you know, these fucking men.
We all know that it's not perfect, and there's still lots of
That's literally a lot of the cheating stories. That's literally their reason. Oh, they're not paying attention to me anymore because like some dudes even get jealous of their own babies. Like, how the fuck do you beg for a baby, and then when the woman is actually mothering the child that you begged her for, you like, while she's like taking care of your own child, you're out there try to find another woman because she's not paying attention to you? What the fuck?
inequalities. There's still a gender inequality in wages. Nonetheless,
That's why we need dominant
it's capitalism
female.
which has actually
It's-
created
yeah,
the
well,
material.
It's not enough. Literally, like, women can't show up to leftist gatherings like men do because their men don't pick up the slack, even if left. Yeah, exactly. Even in the leftist circles, we still need to combat like these gender roles. You know, these fucking gender stereotypes and roles. Those are just your preferences. Exactly. Once I had a motherfucking asking me why I wanted to do the dishes since we had women for that. What the hell? Okay. Again, to quote Kolontai, bourgeois marriage is akin to prostitution. Yeah, you're still using your body. You know? Like how we're using our bodies. Like I said, imps, we're all twerking for capitalism. Whether you like it or not, whether you admit it or not, you're still twerking for capitalism. I don't give a fuck if you're a nuclear scientist. You're still using your body for labor. You know, you're still using your labor to sell to. You're still selling your labor for wages. Okay. As long as you're a wagey, you're twerking for capitalism. Okay.
Young women go to college.
I was like, bitch, what the fuck? I'm just helping my mother. Shut the fuck up, God. Right?
They get degrees. They get jobs. And with that comes a wage. And with that comes a degree of...
Then the religious freaks come in and say, that's why women shouldn't work. No, the family structure is bad, and the extortion of the workers are making it near impossible for women to balance all this work. Exactly. In normal family, both parents raise children, not just the mother. Father pays as much attention and teaches valuable stuff. Exactly. That's how it should be. That's why, you know, you don't baby, like, if you're a dad, like, they're, oh, I watch my kids. Yeah, you should be parenting. What the fuck? Like, I'm helping my wife with the kids. You are not helping your wife with the kids. You are parenting your own child, you man baby. Stupid bitch.
Independence. Now, I'm not saying that we live in an idyllic world. We all know that it's not perfect, and there's still lots of inequalities. There's still a gender inequality in wages. Nonetheless, it's capitalism which has actually created the material conditions for the final true emancipation of women, but which can only come about through the abolition of the capitalist system.
Like I said earlier, right? Okay, we all circle back to abolishing capitalism.
Self. I think I've said enough and I've gone on long enough. I haven't said everything I want to say, even in these short notes, which are an abbreviation
but
of
the US
a shortened version of what I've read. But I hope I've given you a taste of what Marxists think about this and what we have to say. And I do believe we have a lot to say. It's not true what they say about Morgan and Engels superseded.
I mean, if I ask my wife for children, that means I want them and I will do my best. Absolutely. That is your responsibility. That's like the bare minimum. If you choose to bring children into this world, that is your absolute responsibility to take care of your child until they are old enough to be on their own, you know?
In the materialist, historical materialist approach.
L to men who hate babies in general. Yeah.
Evolutionist approach is super.
I don't understand these chuds that like that are so like gung ho about family, like traditional family values, but they refuse to parent their own children. Shut the fuck up, bro. You just want a bang maid and a nanny for your seeds. Shut the fuck up.
Seeded and all the rest of it.
You're not a family man. Your wife is holding your family together. You don't even know your children's doctor, you know? You don't know your children's favorite colors, or you don't know your children's allergies at that. You can't even get yourself like an appointment to the doctor because your wife does that for you. Stupid bitch.
I think we have a lot to say, and we have to say it loudly, because from all this, what's the conclusion? The final conclusion. Men are not natural.
Men are bred to hate their babies since birth, discouraged from playing with baby dolls and all, yeah.
Aggressive towards women. It just isn't true. There are violent men. Of course there are. There's femicide, and it's a terrible problem.
Yeah.
But
that's the result of capitalism.
Product
of patriarchy.
The distortions of human society by class relations and by property.
Yes.
You remove the private property, you build a genuine socialist society where you don't have private property in the sense of private property, the means of production, or, for instance, a society where if a man and woman with children have to separate, they don't have to fight each other with lawyers over who gets the house and the money. But there's plenty of social housing where the husband or the wife or whoever can move out, and there can be a much more peaceful breakup. I have some experience because I've been married more than once, and I know what it means when you have to decide what happens with the children. The way it's structured, we have a breed of individuals called lawyers who make couples fight each other to the death over the money, the alimony, the house. Because who makes from that? It's the lawyer. The lawyer always wins. Every letter he writes, that's $30, $50, $100. And I had it. I actually told my...
Right. Yeah, exactly right, Perilist. An equitable system means we don't need to tie survival to our relationships.
My lawyer, I don't need you anymore. I proceeded by myself because I had a deal with one of my ex-wives. We had a deal, and I thought, why bother with lawyers? But this society is structured in such a way as to force people to fight each other.
Yeah.
Enough social housing, the children are cared for. There's
ideology from the conservative manosphere. Yeah.
No fighting between individuals. You'd have much more natural relations between humans.
That's true, yeah.
A much healthier, I think, relations.
And less transactional, like I said earlier before we started this lecture. With this much advancement, it is inevitable that dynamics between people would change. But if we stopped making everything a treadmill, we wouldn't need a horse, and we never should should have thought a woman belongs in that role. Exactly.
Between humans in a socialist society, and it's something worth fighting for. And it can be fought for, and it would change the relations between men and women. So I think we actually have a far more powerful argument than some of the extreme forms of feminism which say it's all men's fault because of the nature of men. We say no, it's not the nature of men. It's the nature of people who live in a class society.
Yes.
Remove the class society, remove the material conditions, and you will remove the basic. It won't disappear overnight. But as Engels says in his book, once a generation of men who have never had to buy a woman.
This is the quote I wanted to show you guys. Okay, listen.
Appear. And once a generation of women who have never had to sell themselves appear, then the relations between the sexes will change.
Yes.
That's what will happen. Our task is to fight to build a society where those material conditions exist.
Yep.
It's not my task to tell the future generations what kind of sex to have and who with and how often. That will be their business. And furthermore, even if I did try to dictate, I'd be dead by then.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have many powers to impose my will. And I have no desire to impose a will. I want to create the conditions, as a Marxist, that would allow genuine freedom of human beings in the future. That's what we're about as Marxists. That's what we're fighting for.
Hell yeah! That was a hell of a good lecture. I love that. When you start too early, it's your fault. I missed so much of this. Sorry. Definitely not mine. Today's world created by capitalism, family is not required for survival. Back in time, though, it was an absolute necessity, and I think it will be again in the future. Hopefully. Would communism have sex work or nah? We don't know. You know, it's for the future generations to tell, but if there is gonna be sex work in the future, it's not gonna be how we perceive it. It's not gonna be how it is right now, you know? Some would argue a lot of like sex workers would argue that there would probably still be, maybe during the transitional period of communism, you know, in a socialist society, there would still be sex work. But at full communism, I don't really think that there would be actual sex work, because it's not gonna be like, you know, it's not gonna be monetarily incentivized like how it is under capitalism, you know. It's just like what this lecturer said, right? He said that, you know, we don't know like how people are going to how they're gonna view sex, right? And it's not for us to like impose our values on them. And it's up to them. There would probably just be more free sex. Yeah, exactly. Maybe in transitional periods, like in transitional you know, when it's not full communism, of course, you know, you can't really remove sex work completely, like the transactional kind of sex work. But I believe that under full communism, it's just sex, man. Like, it's, yeah, if a person would choose to like do that out of their goodwill, you know, have sex with to make other people feel good, then do that. Like, who gives a shit? It's not like incentivized by, there is no monetary incentive for that, you know, because there's no money. Like, if currency is abolished, right? If money is abolished, then you don't literally need to worry about that shit, you know? Okay, let's not go too deep into that topic. It's not even that deep, though. Like, you just need to understand what the goal of communism is. I agree with the lecturer's conclusion, but also I think that the same arguments presented also mean that historical oppression requires material reparations, be it systemic or material, for the oppressed. In this case, women, which I think is correct. To me, it's the same dynamic with abolishing of slavery, striving for better systems that would dismantle capitalism, but also the necessity for immediate reparation to exploited labor that was unique to chattel slavery. By you, I meant people in general. By in general, damn, my bad. No, I meant in response to sex work and communism. Sex workers I know talked about compassion sex work for disabled people, which is interesting. I mean, yeah, but that's not gonna be like under full communism. It's not gonna be fucking incentivized with money. So they're just basically like having sex with people. I mean, you can call it sex work or whatever, but it's just sex, you know. If people would call it sex work, I guess sex charity work. I don't fucking know. That's another level of comradeship, to engage in sex to make others feel good. I mean, we don't know, you know, like the our relationships would change once class society is abolished, right? So we don't know. Right now, we're all projecting it based on our perception under class society. So we don't really know, right? We can't really know for sure, right? So we can't impose our biases on people that have no concept of class even, you know. I'm off to twerk for capitalism, right? Thanks for the stream, Mana. Bye bye everyone. See you all again. Bye, Adorn. Thank you for dropping by the stream, and good luck twerking for capitalism. I'm twerking for capitalism as we speak. I'm literally on Twitch under the capitalist overlord Jeff Bezos. So we're all twerking for capitalism in some form, okay? Yeah, so some social services might help those who are disabled enough they can't take care of themselves. Yeah, I mean, you know, but it's not gonna be monetized. You know, it's not gonna be monetarily incentivized because there's no money. There's no concept of money. No more money. In some instances, it could be direct compensation, but also, like I said, systemic reparations. I know, like, this sounds cliche, but like our example, enforcing affirmative hiring practices to close the gap between the employability of. I think you're thinking about that under the same system though. Like, you're thinking about it under the framework of like a class society still, like under, or let's say like hell, even like under socialism. I don't think it's gonna be necessary, you know. Because under socialism, like, there is always gonna be the right to work, you know? The right to work is guaranteed, you know? Twerking so smoothly, we can't see her VTuber move around. Really? What am I doing? Hold on. Let me just. Am I still alive, imps? Is my model still living? The first civilization, which is Sumerians, was such a thing as temple prostitution when priestesses did it with people as blessing of the gods, while people in return kept church wealthy. We hacking love Jeff Bezos. Please do not censor. No more money, but I want to buy cheese. No, you will be given cheese. Some of y'all placing too much importance on the nookie too. Yeah. What if the state give you quality cheese instead? Under the dictatorship of the proletariat, you get free cheese. But now the percentage of people who can read is too great for that excuse to be acceptable. Yeah. Where's Engel's pillow now? Wait, I need to make that. I still need to make that one. Anyways, Mana, now we can do the vaccines and the whole seeing children as your property thing. Wait, do you have a video for that? I didn't have any before I read enough feminism. Well, I see your point and I do agree, but also socialism is not coming tomorrow, sadly, and survival under capitalism is unfortunately. Yeah. What I'm saying is, okay, so we're talking about different things. Like, I agree with what you're saying, but I think we're thinking about different structures, you know? Like, obviously under capitalism I think that is necessary. But in under socialism that is not necessary. So, you know. I'm just saying that's not necessary under socialism. Don't forget that medicine would be different. Also, most disabilities would be cured for free and mandatory cured, yeah. Does feminism make you not have sex? There was no sex in the USSR. Do you believe in free cheese or for the lactose intolerant? I mean, there are meds to prevent lactose intolerance, right? No need for a video. Just Google America measles parties. Ah, yeah, I don't want to do that. Oh my god. Okay, so it's gonna be 12 o'clock soon. I think I need to go to bed because I have to go to work tomorrow early. So let's talk about the measles parties in next time. Iftar is in 10 minutes for me. I'm gonna go prep the tables. All right, enjoy your iftar, Zetter. You keep track of body count, liver. I don't know. Anyone in 4B cares what you think. Yeah. I'm against 4B. It's too radical. I mean, I'm not too opposed under capitalism. I think the 4B is necessary. Oh my god. But I maintain the position that, you know, like uh we are not each other's enemies. Like, we are like, this is classic divide and conquer tactic by the capitalists. They want us to keep on squabbling against each other, because so that, you know, we don't achieve class consciousness. So we don't rally against them. They want us to keep fighting against each other. 4B is needed in Korea for sure. Yeah. I mean, within context, you know, I understand why women did 4B, you know. Americans really know how to party, huh? Even their old forgotten illnesses get to party. I mean, Korean gender wars are a whole topic that's hard to understand for foreigners. Yeah, we're not even gonna touch that here, but the point is that, you know, I do agree with, like, at some point, like, at some of the sentiments and why the 4B movement is even there to begin with, you know. It's out of necessity. How about the fake Republic incel some Samsung stops being so fucking violent and gross? Yeah. Exactly, makes sense under their current dynamics. That's true. Feminist Korean movement about abstaining from men, I believe. Yeah. Like everything, feminism swings back and forth like a pendulum until material conditions allow them to settle the middle. Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed that lecture, and I learned a lot from the lecture itself, and like more of like an additional like reading for me. What do you call it? Additional kind of like supplementary like material for after reading Engels, you know. But anyway, imps, I need to go to bed earlier today, so this Wednesday I'm gonna be seeing you again. for another watch along. So this time around, I don't think I will be too tired to cuz I'm done with my taxes. I've already filed my final income tax return, so I won't be too tired to like do any stream on Wednesday. So I think I will be able to do another watch along, but I'm still deciding what to watch. So I might ask like people on my Discord later, the ones who have like the Twitch members, the Twitch subscribers, to like what you want to do or what you want to watch for the watch along this Wednesday. Another thing I was reminded of, American Vice President JD Vance saying this shit, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country, and then after that you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world. Really? What the hell? Have a good one, everybody. Like man with carnation, yeah. I meant to say radical and uncompromising. Man with carnation is gonna be a slapper. Wait, is it safe from TOS? Wasn't JD some shit about encouraging women to not quit toxic relationship to safeguard family, to save family values? I guess so. I mean, it sounds like he's the kind of guy who would say that shit. Yeah, he's useful example to explain. He's a useful example to explain why the nuclear family sucks. Yeah, true. JD is obsessed with birth rates. He's probably also obsessed with the Great Replacement too, huh? The Great Replacement. Uh and before we know it, he's already quoting the 14 words. Before we know it, is already like echoing the 14 words. Oh my god. There are a couple of drops of blood in the beginning, but it's okay. It's not age restricted on YouTube or something. Okay. Then let's watch Man with the Carnation in that case. All of that shit comes back down to the nuclear family. I know, right? But anyway, all right. Before this discussion inches, like I've been saying goodbye for 5 minutes, so let's end this, imps. So maybe I will. Let's see. Who can I raid this time around? Maybe another comrade. Hold on. Let me see. Oh, maybe I can try Aaron Ano. Maybe. All right. Let's do that. Raid. Oh, okay. I can't rate him. All that shit comes back down to, yeah. All right, I guess no. I won't be again. I won't be rating anyone tonight because there's no one online. Basically, I don't know anyone who's online. So, all right, that would be it for today, imps. Thank you for watching the lecture with me and discussing, briefly discussing the what do you call this? Why we need to abolish the nuclear family. And also, please try to do your reading, the fundamental readings. So if you haven't already, please try to read Origin of the Family, Private Property in the State, by Frederick Engels. It's really fundamental. If you're a baby Marxist, and or if you're just curious, you probably should read the source material itself. All right, so I will be leaving you and seeing you on Wednesday. All right, same time, same place. Later, motherfuckers.